Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate you joining us today for our field trip, virtual field trip to a farm in South Central Ohio. Uh, our farmer is Scott Metzger, one of our Ohio Soybean Council board members. He's also president of the Ohio Soybean Association. Uh, we appreciate you joining us. I'm Tom Fontana. I want to personally welcome you. I'm on the staff of the Ohio Soybean Council, and on behalf of Ohio's 24,000 soybean farmers and Grow Next Gen, our educational platform, we welcome you to this tour. And with that, we will get started. For those of you who want to ask a question, please enter it in the Q&A section on Zoom, and we will try to answer as many questions as we can. With that, I'll turn it over to Scott. Scott, can you just give us a little background on you and your farm, and we'll start out with that.
Yeah, I can. Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Metzger. I'm a sixth generation grain farmer from South Central Ohio. Farm with my uncle and cousin, and we raise soybeans, corn, wheat, and malt and barley. And for today, normally we would like to be out in the field planting, but the wet spring we've had, we actually don't have anything planted at all at this moment. So we're hoping maybe Friday we can get started rolling. So instead of being out in the field, I've just got everything set up here with our soybean planter, and we can discuss that and go over that.
Okay, why don't you do that, Scott? Show us how the planter works. Show us the planter and how it works.
Okay, so right here's this is the tractor that we're using, and this is our soybean planter. We actually have a corn planter and a soybean planter, both. This is 40 foot wide. The gray things here that we're looking at right now, this is actually where we put the soybean seed in. Flip this lid up. And that's the hopper that the soybean seeds go into, and then they go out down through the bottom and through a bunch of tubing on the planter to the back there. There's actually two of these on here, two hoppers, and they'll hold they'll hold about 4,000 pounds of seed on it. The white thing right there, that's our seed tender. That's actually what we'll actually load seed up on there, and the spout that's over there on it actually turns this way, and then we fill it up in here with the soybean seed. Whoops, my gimbal went crazy. And then as we start it up, all the tubes that you see on here, they actually run from air. This is an air planter. So with that, it's got a bunch of vacuum on it. So when you start everything up, it'll blow the seeds out, and they actually come in through these tubes right here and go down into the seed meter on it. And then as you're running through the field, all this, like that chain and stuff, is turning, and it's turning the seed meters in on it. And as you look at it here on the back, these are your depth gauge wheels and your seed disc openers. And the seed actually comes down right in through this area here. And we usually plant, it's usually about 1.5 inches or so. The depth in the ground is how deep we plant them. And then this wheel here goes over top of it and just kind of closes the seed trench up on it. I can pop open a meter here and take a look at inside on one of these. So you just take this off. This is I was talking about the vacuum on it. That there's a big large hose up there that the vacuum goes through, and it actually sucks the air out of it, so that the beans will stay on the disc. So the beans will come out right here, and all this stuff is turning, and then where these little individual holes are on here, the beans will actually stick to those holes, and as it goes around here, the brush takes it off, and then it goes down through here, down through the seed tube on it. So that's a little demo of how it works. If we were out in the field, it'd be easier to show. You could actually see the beans in there and how they stick to it and stuff. But that's kind of how that process works anyways. And then you can see here those are the soybean seeds that we have on the seed tender here that we will be planting.
Can you tell them, Scott, why the seeds are that color?
Yeah, so all of the soybeans that we plant are treated with fungicide, and that helps with when you're planting, so you don't have insects and disease. Actually, this variety actually has fungicide and insecticide on it, and that's just to help it germinate and get up out of the ground without having any diseases or insects kill it.
Do we want to show a planter in action, Dan?
Yeah, see on this planter here, they've got individual boxes, so this would be more similar to how our corn planter is set up. You can either have it that way, or you can have the bulk system like what we have, and they're loading it out of a wagon, which is very similar to the seed tender we have behind me here.
And here's a video showing, illustrating what Scott was just talking about. So you can see the seed coming down.
Yeah, and as you can see there, you can see how the soybeans are in the holes on the disc there. That's actually a very similar setup to what I was showing you there on our planter.
Now, how many seeds do you said you load up your planter with about 4,000 pounds. How many acres can you?
Depending on the seed size and the population, we can do anywhere from 50 to 60 acres. We most generally plant. This year we're going to be we actually variable rate our soybean population while we plant, and this year we're going to be anywhere from 145,000 to 160,000 seeds per acre is what we'll be planting at.
Yeah, can you explain variable rate real quickly?
So on variable rate, we have ours set up by soil type in the field. So as we go across the field, as you go into different soil types, it'll actually increase the population or decrease the population depending on what soil type we're in. And by doing that helps save seed costs for us and really increases our yield due to you're getting the right amount of seed on that certain soil type. Here in Ohio, especially in this area, it's pretty common as you go across the field to go across maybe 6-7 different soil types in the field. So we've got a lot of variability in our soils here, so it pays for itself pretty quickly on the seed savings cost and on the other side of it, on the yield side, helping increase the yield by having the right amount of beans there. Because on some of this, you can get too many beans per acre on it. You don't see the yield benefit from it, and you've just got the extra expense in the seed costs.
Scott, where do you get your seed, and what kind of protections does your seed have against insects and diseases?
Okay. Well, we buy all of our seed off of two independent seed dealers in the area. Most of our seed we raise are DeKalb and Pioneer. And as far as our, you said the treatments on the bean, Tom, most of this, all of this year has insecticide, fungicide on it. Then we do have a couple varieties that have some Levo on it, which helps with soybean sudden death syndrome.
Okay, very good. So you were talking about variable rate planting. How does the planter know how many seeds to plant and where?
Well, I go up here in the cab and show you on our monitor. Everything is based off of GPS. With that, we actually go in and build the program. We go in and build the maps as we go. This is the monitor in the tractor, and this actually runs everything in the tractor and everything on the planter. But it'll, as you go across the field, we'll have this screen here comes up, and it's a matter of just putting in when you load in our prescriptions, it'll load in up on this map, and when you pull into the field, it knows which field you're in, and then you basically just start planting. As you plant, it just does it automatically, variable rating across it. Then we also use an iPad to record everything we're doing. And if we were planting now, there would be a map up there of various different collars showing the population as we'd be planting across the field on it.
Okay. Scott, we're going to show a video of someone actually planting right now. Why don't you tell us that if you start on Friday, hopefully, if you could keep planting, how many acres will you plant of soybeans and other products, and how long will that take you?
So we farm around 3,000 acres. It's getting late, so we'll be running a lot of long hours, but we can pretty easily plant 200 to 250 acres in a day, or a setting, whichever one you want to call it. We'll have about 1,300 acres of corn, about 12 or 1,300 acres of beans, and then the rest of our crops are comprised of winter wheat and malt and barley. But if everything goes well and we have one good week of weather, 7 days, we should be able to get everything planted in 7 days, 7 to 8 days, if we don't have any breakdowns or anything.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so you're going to plant here, hopefully start planting in the next week or so. Can you kind of go through for us what stages the soybean plant will go through over different parts of the summer?
So when we plant, when we start planting this Friday, there you can see on the left, those are seeds that have just been planted and germinated. You get a little bit later in the spring like this, and you'll have 3 to 4 to 5 days if you have some 80-degree weather, and we've got plenty of ample soil moisture. So it'll sprout and germ and come up out of the ground. Pretty much within a week, you should be able to see them. You should be able to row them like the picture on the right-hand side. A week to 10 days, dependent upon the weather. So they would look like that there, roughly a week or so, week to 10 days after. As the daylight temperature, or daylight, as the daylight starts to be getting shorter, I guess, the soybean plants will start to flower, and that's what you're seeing there. And that'll usually happen in that middle of June time frame. is when that'll start happening on it. And from that, some of the next stages there is when the pods start to form. And as far as when we start spraying, post spraying for weeds is usually in that flower stage where we were just at. And then as it gets later, then your pods there start to develop, and the beans are actually inside those green pods there. They'll have anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 beans per pod on it. And the beans will be, as the summer goes along and they keep growing, they'll be anywhere from 3 to 3.5 feet tall, depending on the variety and the height, or the genetics of the variety. And as we get into fall here, that's they lose the green collar, and the leaves and stuff drop off of them, and the stems, and then you end up with the brown looking soybeans there, and that's when you're getting close to harvest. And harvest in Ohio will it'll be anywhere from middle of September. We could be starting by then. A lot of that will depend on the weather, but September, October, November, late September, October, November is when we're normally cutting beans in this area.
Okay, very good. So a big issue in Ohio and around the country is water quality and nutrient management. Can you talk a little bit about what management practices you use to keep your fertilizer and other things on the field?
Yeah, we've switched to putting all of our dry fertilizer on in the spring, right ahead of the planter. And actually, we still have most of that to do right now. It's just been that wet around here. It's been hard to get anything done. But we'll spread it right before we start planting the beans. And in our operation, we no-till all the soybeans, and then that is where you don't work any of the ground or anything. You just go in and plant into the field how it is. And by doing that, that helps keep the fertilizer in place. You've got enough residue and stuff there that helps keep the fertilizer where it needs to be, so it doesn't run off anywhere. And that and from a soil health standpoint, you're not working ground, so you're not having any soil erosion, or hopefully not having any soil erosion, unless you get some big gargantuan rain. But that's a little bit of what we no-till as much as we can in our operation. We don't work much ground.
Okay, so when you harvest your soybeans, what do you do with them? Where do they go?
So all of our soybeans, when we harvest, I don't know if we can see it from here or not, but those silver things there off in the distance, we take and those are grain bins, and they actually go in the grain bins, and then we'll haul them out throughout the year, and well, actually, some of the varieties of beans we have this year will actually go to Japan, into the food market over there, and then the rest of the soybeans we have will get exported, hopefully, if we get everything done with China. But that most of the beans in our area are used for feed, and then go into the oil market.
Well, speaking of that, here we see a picture of a combine in the field, but you mentioned feed and oil and so forth. Can you talk a little bit about what soybeans are used for? And we have some pictures to demonstrate that.
Yeah, so when the beans get hauled into an elevator, they can go and get crushed, is what they call it, and from that you get a byproduct called soybean meal. and the soybean meal is used a lot in pig feed and chicken feed, and that's just a part of their food ration. So it's kind of an integrated system with the livestock and soybeans. And then you can see there also another byproduct of it is the oil, biodiesel. And it actually in our operation we run a 10% blend of biodiesel in all of our fuel. So it's a clean burning fuel. There are a multitude of uses for the oil, such as paint. They can get used in crayons. Tom, you can probably elaborate on a little bit more of that, some of the uses that I'm missing out on.
Yeah, we have pictures. The soybean oil and soy protein can be used for a wide variety of things. So you see here that hand sanitizer, cleaners and so forth, adhesives, the foam in Ford automobiles, seats is a soy-based foam. They've been doing that a long time. A lot of soybean oil is used in baking and the making of foods. Soybean products are used in chocolate. Vegetable oil you buy in the grocery store is probably soybean oil. So it has a wide variety of uses. For example, this is AstroTurf. The backing of this AstroTurf is made with soybeans, so a soybean product. So soybeans are used for a wide variety of things, and more and more are being developed. Scott, is there any way to show auto steer, or is that something that would be difficult to do at this point?
Well, it would. I guess I can probably demonstrate it.
So soybeans are used for a wide variety of things, as you've seen while Scott is setting this up. Very versatile plant. The meal is the protein part of the plant, and we talked about the oil and its uses as well. The meal is very high in protein and a good feed. Scott mentioned sending soybeans to Japan. Ohio is a very large producer of what are called non-GMO food grade soybeans. They have a market in Asia. They are used to make tofu and other soy products like natto and so forth that the Asians enjoy. And Ohio non-GMO food grade soybeans, the characteristics are such that the Asians think it makes excellent soy products like tofu. So that is a good market for us. I have some questions here that were sent to me ahead of time from our friends in Alaska, and I will ask some of those in a minute. We'll see if Scott can show how auto steer works.
Yeah, it's going to be hard here since we're not moving, but that where it says auto guidance engage, that'll have it kicked in on it, and then it's just a matter of so you go in and you actually just use that button there and you hit it, and you just there's a button on the back of the joystick here of the throttle, and it's just a matter of hitting it. You set a line up out in the field and drive straight, and get an AB line set up on it, and as you're going through the field, usually we just leave the steering wheel set up like that, and this tractor here that we're in, it actually can turn. You can set it up to turn on the ends itself, but most of the time nobody uses it. So you do have to turn on the ends, but once you turn on the ends and get lined back up with your last round, you just hit the button here on the joystick on the back of it, and your auto steer kicks in, and it lets you be more aware of everything that's going on the planter. You can see this is kind of what it looks like from the back of the tractor here, from inside the cab, looking back on it, and you can just lets you easily look around and make sure everything is working properly and running properly. And even from a fatigue standpoint, once you're sitting in here for 16, 18, 20 hours, not turning the steering wheel is a less fatigue factor, I guess, is the easiest way to describe it on it. So that's a little bit of how it runs. If we were out in the field, I could demonstrate actually how it works, but that's not going to happen today.
I'm going to go to some of the questions that we received prior to the tour. I think we answered where do your soybeans go and what are they used for. Not sure we said where do your soybeans go. You said Japan, but locally, where do you take them?
No, locally we have Cargill elevators and ADM elevators that we haul to. They're large commercial elevators.
Okay.
They get hauled there.
Here's a good question. Is soybean farming consistently successful every year?
Well, that is dependent upon several different things. The era that we're in right now with the lower commodity prices, it's not as successful as what it has been in years past. Right now we're at about the markets were up yesterday and today, but we're in that $7 to 60, 70, 80, 90 cents a bushel, maybe $8 cash price, and that's probably about $1 under the cost of our production on an average yield. A lot of that will just depend on what they end up yielding throughout the year. When you get to the fall, we try to be in that. For us, an average soybean yield in this area is probably in the mid 50 bushel per acre range. There's some years where we've been where we've averaged in the mid 60s, and there's some years where we've averaged in the mid 40s. So it's all just dependent upon what they actually ended up yielding and what you can get them sold for. All in all, soybeans are a cheaper cost crop to produce than what corn or wheat is. With the other crops, you have a lot more inputs involved in it, and the seed is more expensive with the corn anyways. So overall, soybeans are the most economical and cheapest thing to raise in the farm, but you still have to have good yields and good prices to make it work.
Yeah, somebody else wanted to know, is farming a lucrative profession? I guess your point is it depends on what year it is, right?
Yeah, a lot of that is. Yeah, it's not like a normal job where you get a paycheck every week and you know exactly what you're going to get, and that's just not how it is. There's a pretty big risk when it comes to farming, but it's what I enjoy doing. So.
Out of the last 10 years, would you say you've had, how many years have you had a successful growing season? By that is you've actually made money.
Out of the last 10 years, I would probably say probably 7 out of the last 10. And a lot of that is, our farming is so weather dependent. If it turns off dry, it's just, crops need water and need rain to grow, and we need to have the right kind of temperatures. And if Mother Nature does not cooperate, it doesn't matter really what you do with anything else. Mother Nature went out in the end.
Here's a question. How is soybean farming sustainable? And I guess you can look at that a couple different ways. Sustainable from an economic sense and sustainable from an environmental and a, best management point of view.
Yeah, sustainability is, that's always a good key word. As far as the economic side of it, I guess what I alluded to earlier with it being a cheaper commodity to produce, that helps that helps with that, not having so much money tied up in it throughout the growing season. And as far as with the environment, I guess I allude back to the no-tilling we do, and keeping the soil where it needs to be at, and getting as much residue built up in the ground. That helps keep things sustainable for the future generations. I guess I just look at this. I'm one generation that's taking care of it now, and I hope to pass it on to the next generation. I want it to be better than what it was for me. So we try to do everything we can as far as no-tilling and only put down the fertilizer we need. We have several waterways in all the ground that we farm, and that's basically just a waterway is just a grass strip out in the field that when we have big heavy rainfalls, that the water, the runoff surface water from the field will go into the waterways, and so that helps control having gullies and washouts and stuff in your field, and helps control soil erosion.
Okay. Speaking of soil, you mentioned that you grow, I believe, 4 different crops. Can you explain a little bit why you do that and how you do that? So corn, soybeans, barley, and wheat?
Yeah, so you just want to spread out. Yeah, there's an example of a waterway, what I was talking about with that. So I guess for a term that my grandpa always said, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So it's just a risk management tool, and it's also from a cash flow standpoint. Your corn and soybeans you plant in the spring and harvest in the fall, and our wheat and malt and barley, you plant it in the fall, and it actually comes off and is harvested in middle of June, early July. We raise the different crops we raise. We like the rotation. There's not a whole lot of wheat grown in this area anymore, but the soil types we have, it's good to have that wheat rotation in there. It helps get your organic matter build up in the soil, and it's just good for it. But that's why we do that. It's kind of a double fold, I guess.
How much time do you devote to doing all this, or is this pretty much a all year situation, or do you have slow times depending on what you've planted and the weather and so forth?
Yeah, so the times we're the busiest on the farm. I mean, I do this full time. It's a full time job, but the busiest times are in the spring when we're planting, and then June is probably the busiest time of the year for me, just because we've got, we're finishing planting and we're coming up upon barley harvest and wheat harvest, and then kind of get into that August time frame. August is usually a little bit slower on the farm. We spend a lot of more time in the office than we do out in the fields. As far as out in the fields, we're out in the fields, April, May, June, and then sometimes in July, depending on what we're spraying. And then you go into the fall time frame when you start harvesting the crops, and mid-September, October, November, we're out in the fields then. But and then we also we can hold just about all the crops that we raise, and through our marketing program, we market pretty much. We haul grain pretty much 12 months out of the year, and that's how we pay ourselves. That's how we pay our line of credit back that we use to operate throughout the year. But when we're not in the field, and me personally, I spend a good bit of time in the office, going over our financial records and doing all the business side of things with it.
We have a question from one of our viewers. how do you decide what seeds to plant? I think, in other words, are there different kinds of soybean seeds, and how do you decide which ones to plant?
There are different kinds of seeds depending on what genetic package you get on it. In our operation, we've got non-GMO beans which go to the food grade market, and then the rest of our beans are an extend bean. We use those genetics. We try to use the latest genetics possible with everything. That gives you the best yield potential, and also helps utilize the genetics for weed control and stuff like that.
So, what do you like most about farming, and what do you enjoy the least?
Couple of my favorite things is, I guess, when we plant in the springtime, it always amazes me that we can put one tiny little seed in the ground and to watch it grow throughout the year, and see it evolve into a tall, whether it's a soybean plant or a corn plant. And I don't know, it's just enjoyable to watch. And there's something to say about being your own boss. You can't pass the blame on anybody else except for yourself with that. But it's great working with my family. We take pride that we've been around 6 generations, and I hope that maybe one of my kids would like to come back and make that the 7th generation. It's fun working with your family. I mean, it has its moments, but that's like that with anything. Probably the least favorite thing I like doing on the farm would probably be when we start washing equipment. Washing equipment's probably my least favorite thing to do.
I think we want to thank everybody for participating today. Thank you, Scott, for taking us to your farm. Thank you, Dan, for producing and directing the webinar. Thanks to our schools, teachers, and students for taking the time to learn more about soybean farming and all the things that are involved. We appreciate it on behalf of Ohio soybean farmers and Grow Next Gen, our education program. Thank you very much, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you.